The first question to you would be, this is a very strange election where the Congress and the India parties are saying it's about saving the constitution and the ruling party is also saying it's about saving the constitution. What are you saying?
I'm saying that it's principally about the well-being of the Indian people. Because I think that what we've seen really is that the governments could talk about anything but the fact that we are facing record levels of unemployment in this country, that 45% of young people in the job starting age group from 19 to 25 have no jobs. 45% is an incredibly high number. That price rise, I mean, they take consolation in the fact that inflation is not high by global standards, but we are a very price-sensitive nation. Most people spend an inordinate amount of a percentage of their income, for example, on food. And the fact is that many people cannot afford at the bazaar what they could afford a few years ago. So they're feeling the pinch. Then you've got the fact that 80% of the Indian people say their income has gone down in the last 10 years. Only 20% has seen any growth or prosperity in the last 10 years of review. So we're looking at a situation where the well-being of the Indian people has not improved. And that's clearly a terrain in which the opposition cannot be refuted, because the government can talk about building toilets, but most of them don't have running water. The government can talk about gas cylinders, but most people can't afford to refill after the first one. Where is the government materially changing the living conditions of the Aam Aadmi? They failed.
Okay. But the opposition is not able to bring the election down to these basic issues, important issues that you've raised. It's just about Hindu-Muslim right now, Islamophobia. It's about constitution,
that's
reservation.
at the, if you like, at the top level. Yeah. I mean, the Prime Minister is the one who's raising all this Hindu-Muslim nonsense, which frankly I think was unworthy of a Prime Minister, because he is still the Prime Minister of all Indians, including the 200 million Muslims whom he has insulted with some of his really inflammatory comments. But having said that, I think at the bottom level, at the grassroots level, in conversation, even your own journalists are finding out, your profession is finding out when they go anywhere, these are the things uppermost on voters' minds. Okay. So when we campaign at the retail level, as it were, rather than at the big macro picture, this is the message that's going across. I might add that there are certainly worries about the future of our democracy, and in that sense of the constitution and so on. The BJP has itself given rise to these fears with all this talk of 400 seats in order to amend the constitution. As I pointed out on social media in my exchange with Jyoti Mirza when she said it, I said that you don't actually need that, because we've amended the constitution 100 times by consensus, where all parties in most cases have gone along with the amendment because they reflected a certain desire on the part of the public as well as of all parties to bring about a change.
Why are you so sure that BJP wants to change the constitution?
Because when literally you've got four different candidates, Jyoti Mirza and Hegde, two others, Arun Govil and one more person, all saying we need 400 in order to change the constitution, we have to take them at their word.
Okay. Coming back to Prime Minister,
so just to finish my thought, what I was pointing out is you don't need 400, because in most cases you do it in consensus with other parties. You only need 400 if you want to impose a change that the rest of the parties will resist. Okay. That's the concern we have. So if you want to do something that's completely unpopular, whether it's abolishing reservations or whether it's declaring India Hindu Rashtra or whatever it may be, if you want to do something that most other parties will not agree to, that's when you need 400.
You don't need Hindu 400. Rashtra is on the agenda?
Who knows? Well, these people, they have, as you remember, after 2019's victory, they suddenly came up with a series of anti-Muslim laws. They had this triple talaq criminalization. They had the UAPA amendment, where they could declare anybody a suspected terrorist and lock them up without bail, without trial, without charge. Then they had the Article 370 in Kashmir, and then the CAA, with Amit Shah coming and saying chronology samjhiye, after CAA will come NRC. So that all this happened in 2019, in literally 6 months after the elections. So who knows what other surprises they may have in store if they win in 24. That's why you must stop them from winning in 24.
You just said a couple of anti-Muslim measures, including triple talaq. You think that's anti-Muslim?
No, the criminalization is anti-Muslim, because obviously the Supreme Court had already said it's illegal. Yeah. So you didn't need a law. Okay. What they did was they made abandonment of a spouse without payment of compensation criminal only for Muslims. Frankly, we all know Hindus, including some very prominent ones, who have abandoned their spouse without paying compensation. And I won't name names, but I think everyone knows some of the better known examples in this country.
Right.
For them, it's not a criminal offense. If a Muslim does that, that becomes a criminal offense. Is that right?
Right. I want to ask you, you just said the Prime Minister makes all these Hindu-Muslim comments, but he has recently, only 2 days ago, said that if I were to say
But he
something
did
like
say
that,
it. So
I
is he
will,
publicly declaring he's unfit for public office? It was such an extraordinary statement. He said, if I were to talk about Hindu-Muslim, I would be unfit for public office.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we wanted him to realize, that for a Prime Minister to speak like this is unworthy. But the day after he said that, he went and said it again.
Right. So what should he do?
I think he should stop contradicting himself and think of what is a decent thing to do for the country that, after all, he represents everyone in this country, every demography, every religious group, and every minority.
He also says he doesn't want anybody to be special citizens. He said that yesterday to an agency.
Good.
That I'm not against minorities, but I will not condone special treatment of a certain section of people, which the opposition wants, he says.
No, the opposition has only talked about giving special assistance to the marginalized, the excluded, the disenfranchised, the people who have been, very frankly, our example is what we did for 10 years in UPA. We presided over a period of great growth. We are the ones who brought in liberalization to this country. From 91 to 2011 were the 20 best years in the Indian economy. And of that time, much of that, it was the Congress party ruling.
Right.
What did we do? We made sure that the economy grew, but the revenues that came to the government from increased growth, we made sure they were distributed to those who are most in need. That's all we're talking about. We're talking about social justice. We have said 5 nyayas, right? So we talk about Mahila, Shramik, Yuva, and Kisan. And we also talk about Hissedari Nyaya. There is all of that includes Adivasis, Jal Jangal Zameen. That includes the SC population. There is no specific reference to any particular religious group, as the BJP would like you to believe.
Okay.
So I just want to say, as somebody who's worked in the manifesto committee, I know what it contains. There is nothing there that confirms.
You're saying there's nothing. The confusion arises when you say that you are going to raise the cap, existing cap of 50% reservation beyond. So who do you want to target?
No, first of all, what was said was that if necessary, we would do that. In other words, first you have a census. Find out what percentage you're talking about. You see, part of the problem right now is we give benefits and we withhold benefits on the basis of caste. But we have no accurate census showing you how many people are in what caste.
You mean caste census?
Yeah. So we're talking about a socio-economic caste census.
You just said the PM makes Hindu-Muslim remarks. That's a fair point, and you also reasoned it out. Some remarks have also come from leaders of your side, vote jihad. Then Rahul Gandhi making that comment about the X-ray. Then Sam Pitroda saying something about the wealth redistribution, which completely threw your campaign off track.
Okay, let me answer all of those. Number one, vote jihad. The lady who made that comment herself explained that jihad in Urdu merely means struggle, and that she had no intention of conveying anything about a holy war. She was talking about a struggle to ensure that you would vote for the right interests.
But she could have avoided that.
Conceivably, but she's a young person who said something. I mean, the funny thing is that the government is only interested in these distractions. But let me finish those three. Number one. Number two, what is an X-ray? An X-ray shows you what's inside your body. All Rahul is saying by X-ray is that let's see what the actual figures are in the society, what's inside our society. Third, Sam Pitroda is a gentleman sitting in Chicago. He is not a member of the manifesto committee, and he didn't say anything as part of the campaign. He gave a podcast to an American audience.
Right.
We're looking at a situation again where people are deliberately anxious to distract the voters from anything but the real issues affecting their well-being.
Okay.
And this is why we want to bring it back to the real lives of people.
Correct.
The real lives of people are not affected by what somebody says in Chicago. They're not affected by what particular vocabulary a rhetorician may use in a speech. And they're not affected by a particular metaphor that a political leader may use. But they are affected by the persistence of unemployment. They are affected by the inflation that hurts the average Indian. They are affected by declining incomes. They are affected by increasing taxes on petrol and diesel, which affect everything else, and so on and so forth. So there's some very real things that affect people, and those are where we want to concentrate people's minds. And obviously, because it doesn't suit the government, it's distractions that they want to turn our minds to.
Right.
And I would deplore responsible media playing that game and obliging the government by focusing on distractions rather than on real substance.
Right. So how many seats are you estimating for the Congress?
I'm not talking in terms of numbers, Azgi, I'm sorry.
So what are
That's
you
because
talking about?
I've often said it really is a month's game. I mean, same as in a cricket match, you don't want to predict the exact number of runs. Anything can happen between now and the end of the match. I will say that we are definitely expecting that the India alliance collectively will have more than the NDA alliance. And what is more, that at the end of the day, Mr. Modi's party will drop sufficiently below the majority mark that even with his rather sorry sort of excuse for allies, that he will not be able to reach the majority. If you look at the allies, you've got a half party in Mr. Shinde, another half party in Mr. Ajit Pawar, you've got a fading party in Mr. Nitish Kumar, and you've got a two-seat party in RLD. That's essentially his allies. Plus, you've got Chandrababu Naidu, who has a fairly strong regional party. That's the sum total. Akalis stayed away, BJD stayed away. And these are parties that he publicly and humiliatingly wooed, but that spurned the BJP. I am looking at a situation, if you just look at numbers like this, I am frankly looking at every indication being that the BJP plus these allies will not be able to reach the kind of magic mark that will enable them to make a claim to form the government. Okay. Even if BJP were to be the largest single party and therefore get the first chance, they still have to get enough allies to form it. They won't be able to get the allies. And then by that time, the India alliance will have come together with its numbers. And I'm convinced that we will be able to give the president 272 signatures.
So you are hinting at a 2004-like situation?
Absolutely. I think, in fact, this election reminds me more and more of 2000.
Right. I want to ask you about Swati Maliwal. You know, she is dominating the poll narrative, at least in Delhi. Delhi is going to elections. You are somebody who people look up to for making the right noises. Why are you so silent? Why is the India bloc so silent?
First of all, as far as the India alliance in Delhi is concerned, the Aam Aadmi Party has spoken for us and for themselves, and they know the situation better. The lady was their appointee. They know her qualities for good or for ill. And there is no reason for us, who know less than they do, to augment what this. Secondly, we also see this as part of this entire distraction game the BJP specializes in playing. Once again, what may or may not have happened to one individual lady is far less important than what may or may not happen for the millions of people living in Delhi whose well-being is at stake.
So you are saying that India is doing the right thing by standing with Kejriwal in this matter?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No doubt about it.
You made a very important comment recently in Mumbai. You called for an investigation into the leader of opposition of the Assembly's comments about Hemant Karkare. That was a significant remark because not everybody comes out in defense of such statements. Do you stand by that? What do you mean?
No, I will say that because the leader of the opposition had made the specific claim he had made, and it was anchored in a statement by a reputed police official who wrote a book saying this, I said it would surely be useful to know the final truth. I am not in any way, as has been wrongly caricatured, in any way excusing Kasab, who definitely killed large numbers of people. We are the government that arrested him, interrogated him, amassed all the evidence, tried him, gave him his due punishment, had him executed. So it's not as if we are in any way implying that there is any exoneration of Kasab and the terrorists. All we're saying is if there is any doubt about what happened to one particular individual who's a hero, who all of us admire greatly, I actually had met the gentleman. And I think he's a wonderful man. I went to the first opportunity to go and express my condolences in person to his widow. So I can tell you that this is not something that I would do lightly. I'm just saying if there is any doubt, and some two respectable people, the leader of the opposition and a retired police officer, have expressed doubt, surely we would all like to know what the truth is. That's all I'm saying. But to turn that into some sort of exoneration of Kasab is completely unforgivable because nothing in what I said, and I can, I've put on social media the entire 4-minute remark in both English and Hindi. Right. Nothing in what I've said can lend itself to such construction.
Dr. Tharoor, Congress is contesting a historic low number of seats, 328. How do you see that?
Look, it's a reflection of the fact that we recognize that reality dictates that this has got to be a coalition effort. This is not Congress versus BJP alone. This is India Alliance versus BJP. And when I say India Alliance, I'm also conscious that it doesn't always hold up in every state. We know that in Delhi, Aam Aadmi Party is ally, in Punjab they're not. In Kerala, the CPM is not her ally, in Tamil Nadu they are.
That's all right.
That's all right, because each of our states has its own political character, and dare I say it, its own political history since independence. And therefore, for us to act as if that doesn't matter is actually naive. I think, of course, it matters.
How long will it take for Congress to go back to its past glory? Will it ever form a government?
I think this election is going to mark the turning point of that marriage.
Can you elaborate?
I think we're going to do well enough that we're going to be a significant, formidable party in our own right, and the linchpin or the nucleus around which a new coalition will be formed. And just as Congress alone went up from 2004 to 2009 elections, similarly between 24 and 29 will again go up further and become a formidable force, I have no doubt.
Okay. Dr. Tharoor, do you think Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka contesting from traditional seats of the party would have boosted party's prospects better in UP?
Well, that's academic now. I think they've reviewed all the options and made the choices they've made.
Okay.
To my mind, it was important to hold on to Rai Bareli. Don't forget that the family has held it since Feroz Gandhi was elected in the 1952 election, the very first elections of the country. They couldn't possibly have abandoned Rai Bareli.
Yeah.
And I think at the same time, the decision that was made to keep Priyanka Gandhi out of an individual constituency but have a campaign nationally also makes sense, because she is an absolute natural. She's campaigned for me in Thiruvananthapuram.
But why doesn't she contest? People say she's too late in politics already.
No, I think that again, that's a call for individuals to make, right? I think that she clearly has given ample proof of her talent, her political intelligence, her oratorical skills, including her interviewing skills in Hindi and so on. She really is a natural. As I said, I saw her campaigning for me in Thiruvananthapuram, and I felt blessed that she's such an outstanding sort of personality we have. Let her be of help to as many candidates as possible right now. And when the time comes that she has to take the plunge for herself, I'm sure she will, and I'm sure she'll do it with a resounding success.
Forgive me for asking this. Because you're from Kerala, I take the liberty. Suppose Rahulji was to win both Rai Bareli and Wayanad, which one would you want him to keep?
That is something which I think you're opening a nice little trap for me that I'm not going to fall into. The truth is that
I'm being innocent about it.
No, this is a call that they will have to make, and I think I personally expect them to win both seats.
Yeah,
comfortably.
It'll be a hard call to make.
It'll be a hard call to make, but the politics is often about making hard calls.
Yeah, that is true. So tell me something, again one tough question which we have all been grappling with. The A.K. Antony Committee after the 2014 loss said that you were seen as pro-Muslim and you lost. Do you agree with that? Was that report ever debated?
To be honest, that report was never released. All we have is second-hand, third-hand hearsay accounts of what the report says. I myself have not seen the report, even though I know the author very well. I think, as far as I know, one copy went to the Congress president of the time, Mrs. Gandhi, and that was about it. So where people are giving authoritative accounts of what it says, I don't know. But what I can say is that in 2014, there were a number of factors. There was this whole corruption charge against us, the Anna Hazare movement, the completely unjustified perception that somehow Congress alone was uniquely corrupt, the CAG's sort of putative loss story of 2G, which turned out to be completely discredited later. Similarly, each of the allegations that were made against Congress were founded in the courts thereafter. But nonetheless, that entire miasma of the corruption story was a very major factor. If there was a perception that we were too close to one community or another, that may have been triggered by the Sachar Commission's report rather than by any particular decisions made by the Congress government. I think it would be very difficult to point to any specific decisions that in any way favored one community over others. In fact, they keep pointing to Dr. Manmohan Singh's 2006 speech, which he clarified at that time when they made the same issue at that time. But they keep forgetting to mention the fact that he ruled the country for 8 years thereafter and never did any of the things that they claimed his speech was going to signal as doing. So again, I don't want to overstate this whole Muslim factor.
But you are saying we might be incorrect in quoting the A.K. Antony report.
I haven't seen the report, so I can't confirm that you have quoted it correctly.
Okay. And it was never debated?
It was never released.
Okay. And just two last questions, is it okay? Yeah, just two, three. You were part of the G23.
Yeah.
Were all your issues resolved?
I think not in detail. No specific suggestions we made, such as the revival of the parliamentary board and so on.
What's the pending task?
The most important thing that happened was there was a revival of the party. And I would say that that revival has become very apparent that there's a lot more. I mean, in some ways, a different solution was found to the revival than the one the G23 had recommended. And that solution was Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra. That did a tremendous job of energizing the party workers, and the party system and the party machinery sprang to life, which is what we were arguing for. We perhaps made a somewhat old-fashioned argument that we should revive the institutions in the party and democratize decision-making, bring it down to the lower levels. What Rahul Gandhi did was he himself marched to the lower levels, and that is as good an answer as any. So I will not say there's any pending issues we need to worry about. It was a different approach we suggested, but the approach that they have done, that the existing party leadership has done, has worked.
Dr. Tharoor, just two last questions. One is, why is it that the Indian National Congress that spearheaded the freedom movement is struggling to fight BJP's narrative that you are anti-national, that you abuse armed forces? You know what I mean?
This is absolute nonsense. In fact, the betrayal of the armed forces has been caused by the BJP's adoption of the Agniveer scheme, and we have been criticizing that scheme, saying you are actually undermining the professionalism of the Indian Army. We are proud of the Indian Army. Our governments have successfully built up the Indian Army, which has a great tradition. I've seen the Indian Army at close quarters in my days in United Nations peacekeeping, where it was manifestly clear that the Indian Army is respected as one of the best armies in the world by other countries as well. So for the BJP government to undermine such a good army through this kind of half-baked contractualization scheme called Agniveer is actually a very, very serious error. So how can we be accused? We point this out. How can we be accused of attacking the army? They are damaging the army. We are rising to protect it.
Okay. What about India's global image? Because there's a general perception that it is growing. The US also, after calling us xenophobic, has recently praised our democracy, that so many people are coming to vote.
The problem, unfortunately, is that the vote is about the only good story left to be told. In fact, the Swedish Varieties of Democracy Institute has said that we're no longer a democracy, we are an electoral autocracy. What does that mean? It means that we have elections and millions of people come out and vote. In fact, officially there are 1 billion voters on the road. But once the people are elected, they're conducting themselves like autocrats. That's what we've seen after the last two elections, and particularly after the last one. That is not a good reputation to have. In fact, overwhelmingly, our image in the world has gone down under this debate, not gone up. The BJP has been spinning a false narrative that our stature has gone up in the world. The truth is, if you pick up any newspaper in 50 countries, particularly in the Western democratic world, you get overwhelmingly negative articles about India, about our treatment of minorities, attacks on Christians at Christmas time, attacks on Muslims, about the weaponization of the government agencies, about tax terrorism that's driven our millionaires out to Dubai and Singapore rather than staying here.
The government says these rankings are motivated.
Motivated by what? Why is it anyone's interest? But why should others want to bring us down? They actually want us to do well. They want us as a counterweight to China. They would love to be able to hail India. But the problem is that even while the governments want good relations with us, precisely for that reason, the media sees all this happening, and these are the stories that they publish. So I travel a fair amount internationally, and I can tell you that what I hear is deeply, deeply worrying for me in terms of our national image. Now, government-to-government contacts, our government has done as good a job as they could have done at the government-to-government level. But the moment you get into things like mass media about India, public perceptions of India, the democratic world's image of India as a democracy, it's a very different story. Especially by comparison with the image of India during the UPA, which was a fabulous.
Last question.
Another person waiting now. I'm so sorry. We've already gone up five minutes.
Just last question. How would you describe Prime Minister on the one hand and Rahul Gandhi on the other? Your description of the
No,
two
I think
personalities.
that's really not a fair question. They're two very different people, very different life experiences, ages, everything else. I would say that that it's important to remember we're not fighting a presidential election, we're fighting a parliamentary election. And there is a difference between a leader who has run a parliamentary system presidentially and a leader who is prepared to lead collegially and collectively with others.
Yeah.
And to my mind, that is a very big difference, because in the parliamentary system, if you're just studying political science, not entire political science, it tells you that in a parliamentary system, the Prime Minister is a primus inter pares, the first amongst equals. That is all that we have been able to demonstrate when we have ruled in coalitions, and what we have seen with Mr. Modi is something very different, very autocratic, and very undemocratic as well.
But will we see RG as the Prime Minister? No answer.